Let's explore the difference between this and this. Hi, I'm Ron Drotos from KeyboardImprov.com, and welcome to my journey through the real book number 134. The Girl From Ipanema, the classic Bossa Nova, and it is really the classic Bossa Nova. This was the big hit. This reached number 5 on the American pop charts. It was written by the Brazilian composer Antonio Carlos Jobim in 1962. And it's interesting, the copyright date in the real book says 63. And that may be true. You know, I don't know the whole history about it, but it was recorded there were recordings from 1962 before it was copyrighted. So I don't know. It just goes to show you we can't always say, okay, it says 63 here, so it was composed in 63. There's recordings from 62. But basically, maybe it was that it was composed in Brazil, right, and recorded in Brazil, and then this is the American copyright date a year later. I don't know. But it is the song that encapsulated or captured the essence of the Bossa Nova craze from the late 50s, early 60s, and Antonio Carlos Jobim is the preeminent composer. I don't know if it's the first Bossa Nova everybody should learn. The bridge is fairly complex. Maybe Blue Bossa would be a little easier. I'm not really sure. But it's a great tune. And one of the reasons that jazz musicians play so many Bossa Novas is that there was a cross-influence between jazz and Brazilian music that is reflected in Bossa Nova. And I heard that firsthand, actually, and secondhand from Jobim himself when I was Gerry Mulligan's assistant in the late 1980s. I spent 2 years working for Gerry, and great baritone sax player. And he was long-term friends with Jobim. And I remember he was, it might have been after the weekend or something, and I went over his house, Gerry's house, on a Monday, 1987, and he had just been talking to Jobim, I think Jobim was visiting New York and they had dinner or something, or I forget exactly. But he said that Jobim was talking about how the Brazilian composers that eventually started writing bossa were influenced by Gerry's writing, his compositions, and his arranging in Miles Davis' Nonette, the Birth of the Cool sessions, what's now known as Birth of the Cool. So Gerry and cool jazz influenced Jobim and his contemporaries, and they in turn took jazz chord progressions, like this is basically the A section to Take the A Train, same as Girl From Ipanema, and then they incorporated it to Brazilian music, which then influenced Gerry and the jazz musicians. So it was jazz, Brazil, jazz back, America, Brazil, back to America, and now everybody plays Bossa Novas and jazz all over the world. But here's the thing, I play, it's in F in the real book, and it sounds great. It's the original key, I guess. I've never seen Jobim's handwritten manuscript, but this is the key, everybody plays it in, so I thought. But then I would hear the famous recording by Stan Getz and Gilberto singing, and it sounded mellower. It didn't sound, it's nice, it's bright, but something about it, and then I realized it's in D flat. It just has a mellower sound rather than... And so I usually play it in D flat now. I really like it. So I invite you to try that or learn it in F if you're just learning it. The bridge is great. It goes through so many different keys. And it's got these descending major third and up a fourth kind of. And it's just a 3-6-2-5 with a sharp 11. Another connection would Take the A Train, which uses that interval prominently. In the A section, at least. So maybe this was influenced by Take the A Train more than we think. So I'm going to start. And the other thing is with Bossa Novas, Americans, well, maybe it's different now. People are studying world music more. But I remember in the late 70s, early 80s when I started playing jazz, a lot of Bossa Novas, and myself included, we kind of played it like American pop music from the early 60s, like Under the Boardwalk, you know? We play, and it sounds great, but you could also play it much smoother. You know, like guitar, or you know, boom, a little more authentic with the bass line, boom, boom, instead of boom, 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 like Under the Boardwalk. But there's nothing wrong with this, but my point is that if you listen to Jobim's recordings and other Brazilian recordings of Bossa Nova, particularly that are sung in Portuguese, because you hear the vocal line floating a little differently than a typical English-speaking singer will, there's a much richer and varied stylistic palette, if you will. Sometimes they get kind of bluesy. Other times it's with strings, or very chromatic. Jobim was influenced by Chopin a lot, the classical composer, and a lot of his chromaticism and the way his bass lines move to in some of the other songs he's written, How Insensitive, pieces like that, influenced by classical music. And you hear a bigger variety of ways to approach Bossa Nova, generally by Brazilian musicians than American. That's been changing over the years, though. So here we go in D flat, Girl From Ipanema, with wherever this takes me. I'm going to start very mellow, though. remember the variety I was talking about before. It can get rhythmic, bebop, you can play your bebop legs. Play anything you want over Girl From Ipanema. That's the fun thing. Yes, Ipanema. Not Impanema like I hear sometimes, or I might have just said myself. Ipanema. Apparently it's a beach in Brazil. I've never been. So thanks for being here. Check out Ipanema either in F or in D flat. It's a great, great tune. And just because it's played a lot doesn't mean it's, quote, overplayed. Because if it's played well and from the heart, it's always valid and authentic. See you in the next video.